is your full name?
My full name. Should I spell it? It's Randall J. Farlow.
And your current age?
I'm 70.
70. When and where were you born?
I was born in Ephrata, the old Ephrata Hospital up on the hill.
And year?
1947.
And what places did you live?
What places did I live? Lived in Hopeland. You know which house.
Yep.
You live there. Lived in Hopeland. Then when I was in the military, I was wherever I was. And I lived 5 years in Ephrata after I got out of the Army. And I built this house, and I've lived here since 1973.
What were the names of your parents?
Erla Farlow, her maiden name was Ank, and then E. Leroy Farlow. His first name was Earl, but everyone called him Leroy. His middle name, I don't know why, but Earl Leroy Farlow was.
And siblings' names?
Siblings. I have a brother Jimmy, brother Stevie, sister Lisa.
And grandparents' names?
My grandparents on the Farlow side was John and Alice Farlow. They lived in Hopeland, moved to Ephrata. My mother's side, my grandfather's name was John, his wife Ada.
Okay. And did you marry?
Yes, I'm married.
And her name?
Paula.
Children's names?
Children? How many children? Let me think. Yeah, I have some children. Daughter Angie, daughter Audra, son Jared.
How would you describe your childhood and family life before your teenage years?
Normal, just
Normal.
good.
Your school recollections, memories of any school?
Well, at first I went to a two-room school in Hopeland up to 7th grade. Then I went to Clay. They built a new school 1 year. Then I went down to Ephrata, the old high school, and they built a new high school, and I finished the last 3 years at Ephrata, the new high school.
Was the old high school next to the Fulton School, I think it is?
No, it's Highland.
Highland.
Up in the
Near
hill
that,
at
okay.
Highland.
I remember hearing something about it being near one
Well,
of
I
the
guess it's
schools.
still there, but I don't know if it might be like an elementary school
Oh,
now.
okay.
So used to be.
Describe yourself as a teenager.
As a teenager, very strong, well-built, healthy, very handsome person. Just a normal teenager.
Have any like activities or?
Oh, I had pimples, and I played baseball a little bit for the school. That was it. I lived in Hopeland, 5 miles away. It was hard to get to the school for activities. They didn't have a bus then that'd take you back and forth.
You have any like hobbies as
In school,
even just at home?
I used to shoot groundhogs.
Okay.
I got an old, well, it wasn't an old, it was a very good peep sight rifle from a friend of my father's. And 1 year I shot 12 groundhogs. 11 of them were head shots. Just shot them in the head and they dropped. One of them, the farthest one away, was about 100 yards. I didn't realize it, but the bullet, as you shoot it, it drops, and I aimed for the head, but I hit him in the heart. But I got all 12 of them. So I used to like to shoot.
As a teenager, did you see yourself as being like a job? Did you see yourself doing
I
this
used I
later?
used to mow the cemetery,
Used to
the
mow.
Hopeland Church.
Okay.
I got paid 75 cents an hour to mow. It'd take about 8 hours to mow the whole cemetery. That was my job. Then I trapped muskrats. I used to get 50 cents a muskrat. That was big money then.
Yeah. Did you see, like, in 10 years, could you see yourself doing a job, or what
Oh
would now
no,
be machining? No.
had no idea. When I went to high school, machine shop was the one I disliked the most.
Oh, really?
I liked printing, wood shop, and then when I got out, I went to work, and I worked in a textile machine works in Reading. They had like 5,000 people. I ended up working in a machine shop, and then I ended up taking a machinist apprenticeship, and I ended up being a tool and die maker. When in high school, machine shop was the thing I disliked the most.
Did any of your family members serve in the military, and if so, when?
My father, World War II.
Okay.
That's all, I guess I'd say. I'm not sure if my grandfather served or not. My father, me,
No, your brothers in the...
none of the brothers.
Even in, like, the Secret Service, wasn't...
Well, Jimmy, my brother, was in the Secret Service
Okay.
in Washington. He'd go ahead of the president and make sure things were good, and he rode in the
Beast?
yeah,
car?
the big van in the back.
Yeah.
He had electronic equipment, and
Okay.
he monitored when they'd go on the motorcades. So he did that.
Where did you train after entering into service?
South Carolina. They called it Tank Hill. There was a big water tank on the top, and then a hill where all the barracks were on. So I took basic training at Tank Hill, it's near Columbia, South Carolina, Fort Jackson. Then you have basic training, 8 weeks, then you have advanced individual training, AIT. The basic is just general stuff. The AIT is advanced individual training. That was at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I was trained to be a 106 recoilless rifle. That's like a bazooka mounted on a Jeep. It's
Okay.
a big 4-inch diameter round, long, like an artillery shell. So I was trained at that, and they sent me to Vietnam, and they gave me an M16 and said, "Here, you're an infantryman now." That's how the Army works.
You have any memories about your training?
Oh,
Any
one
stories?
time they asked, "Who wants to be a truck driver?" I didn't volunteer, but a couple guys volunteered, and they took them out and they gave them wheelbarrows to push. That was their view of truck drivers. You never could trust them right what they were asking. So,
Any other training stuff?
in AIT, we shot the Jeep mounted bazookas. They had big rounds. They would retrofit a 50 caliber rifle inside one of these rounds, and then you'd sight it in, and that's what we practiced with. We didn't
Okay.
shoot the big rounds. They were expensive. We
Yeah.
just shot 50 calibers.
Hmm.
And there was one other guy and me that shot perfect scores.
Huh.
And they told us there were 8 people that year that shot perfect scores at the end. And I did mine in December, and so it was the whole year before. Only 8 people. So because we shot perfect scores, they gave our platoon a week leave to go into town,
Okay.
which I didn't go into town. I just stayed in the barracks.
No, okay. Where did you go after training?
Uh, After training, you had a couple weeks off, and they sent me right over to Vietnam.
Is there a place on the map here?
Yeah, just north of Saigon.
North of Saigon.
Yeah. Saigon's, where is Saigon? Should be in the middle.
I think those may be battles, or yeah, attacks
Yeah.
here, maybe.
Yeah.
Something on the back. Maybe not. Yeah, Saigon, right there.
Okay. Ben Ho. That's where we flew into, just north of Saigon, Ben Ho.
Okay.
Uh,
Alright. When you were drafted, right?
yes, my friends and neighbors sent me a letter telling me they wished me to serve in the military. That's how it was done then. You got a letter, your friends and neighbors request your presence to serve in the military. So I was drafted.
Okay, and what was your initial thought when you got that letter?
Yeah, well, I'm going to Vietnam. I'll probably be killed.
Where was the first battle you fought in?
Oh, I have no idea.
No idea. Any of
No.
I think these are more major battles.
Well, the only one I can remember is Junction City. Was one. Yeah, it was north of Saigon,
Okay.
up in there. Yeah. We didn't, I don't know. I guess they were battles or something, but I was in an infantry unit. They just sent us out in the jungle and we did sweeps and ambushes and stuff like that for 6 months. That's all I did. I was just out in the jungle. The only battle is Junction City, I remember, is the name of one.
Okay.
That was a big area. There's a whole lot of people in it.
How do you think America was changed after the war?
Oh, jeez.
Major, like, I know the economy was something bigger.
I really don't know how it was changed. I don't know what to say.
You didn't see any like physical change.
No, I didn't care too much then because I just got married and had kids and lived my life. I don't know. Didn't see any big change.
Okay. Why do you think America got involved in the war?
Well, America got involved in the war to stop communism.
Yeah.
Communism was spreading throughout all Europe. It went over into China, and then they jumped to Vietnam. And if we would not have went there to fight them and hold them off, they would have went into the Philippines, into Australia, and it would have just kept going. So we went to Vietnam to stop communism.
I don't know if the domino effect, that rings a bell.
Yeah, that's what they would have went from China to Japan to Vietnam. That's what it would have been. Okay. So we went to Vietnam to stop communism.
There's no other smaller reasons, no personal reasons.
No.
In your opinion, was it worth for America to get involved?
Yeah. It was because it stopped communism there. They never went down to Australia or over to Japan. So I think it was worth it.
How do you think the war has affected you personally today? Any, even health, like Agent Orange or anything? You didn't have to...
I don't know.
It's just kind of another event in your life.
Yeah.
There's nothing...
It was something I didn't really want to do, but I did. Now that I did, I'm glad I did it. it gives you a feeling of self-worth. I don't know how to
Okay.
put it, but
You did something with your life type
yeah,
thing.
did something good that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Uh, it's about the best I can say.
What was the most intense or scariest situation you were ever put in or got into?
Well, that was when we crashed in the helicopter.
Okay, you might tell the story.
It was in the last 6 months when I was over there. The first 6 months I was in the infantry, always in the jungle. Second 6 months I went to work for a general. They needed someone to be a general's aide, and I was there 6 months, so I knew what I was doing. So they told me to go work for the general, which I didn't really want to do, but
Yeah.
I did. The general, I did whatever he wanted. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, heat his showers. They had a 55-gallon drum for showers. I spit shine his shoes. Whatever the general wanted. I worked right under him. Didn't
And his name, the general's name?
General Coleman. He was a one-star general. They had 2 1-stars, and General Hay was the big general. So I worked for one of the little generals. And I was his RTO radio operator. When he would go out on the helicopters, I would go along, and they have a machine gunner on each side, and I would sit in with a machine gunner, and I'd carry the radio. Whenever he got off the helicopter and walked somewhere, I would follow him, and if he needed to talk on the radio, I would talk. We were at a road clearing camp, and we took off, and we were up 900 feet. I remember that because they told me. And all the motor blew up, and we dropped like a rock, except the pilot was a very good pilot. He took the rotaries out of gear, so they actually softened our landing. We didn't drop like a rock, but next thing to it, because we really bounced when we hit. I thought we were going to blow up, but we didn't. And we all got off the helicopter, and we're all standing there waiting for the thing to burn or something, and it didn't, so the pilots went over and got extinguishers and put it on. We're all standing there, and the general says, "Well, maybe we should get some weapons, boys." You know, we kind of looked, and there we were, everyone out around the helicopter. The general's there with his little pearl handle 32 in his waist, carried that more for show.
Yeah.
And that was the only gun we had. All the rest of them were on the helicopter, so we all ran back and got our weapons. And that was probably the scariest, because they say you see your life go before you, and I actually did. I don't know how to explain it, but in those 2 or 3 seconds, I saw my whole life go before me. And I was only 18, so I didn't have much to go before me. But then the neatest part of the whole thing is, we're there on the road. We didn't crash in the jungle. We stayed on the road. And all of a sudden you hear this loud noise. They call it rolling thunder. The tanks were coming from that camp that we were at. The tanks were coming, and the armored personnel carriers. And all of a sudden, you see a tank, and it took off that way, and then one took off this way, and another one. All of a sudden, we were surrounded by tanks, an armored personnel carrier. The armored personnel carrier had the infantry, and there might have been, I don't know, 8, 10 infantrymen in each armored personnel carrier. There was probably 6, 8 tanks and 6, 8 armored personnel carrier, and they're all around us. And all of a sudden, the armored personnel carrier, they just shoot into the jungle. These are 50 caliber rounds. They're big rounds. And a tank would shoot. And it was the weirdest, scariest, most exciting feeling I ever had. Thinking, they're coming out to save me. Well, they weren't coming to save me, they were coming to save the general. But the other general he was talking to had actually flown in and picked him up and took him out before they ever came, but they didn't know that. So that was the scariest, neatest time.
What was one thing you've taken away and learned from the war that you still value today?
What do I value from the war?
Like discipline stuff, being thankful for what you have here.
What I took away is our country is the best country to live in, the strongest country, and I'm very happy to live here. The Army defends the country. I'm just, until you saw, or actually in the military, you have no idea what their capabilities are. They, something else.
What was your favorite part of daily routine, something you do every day that you almost look forward to almost?
Getting the day over with so I was one more day closer to going home.
Do you have a favorite pastime, basketball, baseball?
Now.
Well, back
then.
If you weren't going out clearing.
Well, I didn't have too much time. I got out of high school, then I went to a school to be a draftsman from 8 to 1. Then I'd go to work, and I'd work from 3 to 11 at night. So I didn't have much time to do anything else when I was just out of high school. Then I went right into the Army, so I didn't have much time to do anything.
And when you were in the Army clearing, when you were still stationed back at the camp, did you guys play cards or?
I never played cards.
Never played?
I never drank beer or anything. I guess the best thing we did is just lay around.
You didn't play any, like, basketball? I saw a picture there.
No, they really didn't do that.
They really didn't?
No. Not where I was. The camp, it wasn't set up for anything like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Today, it's different today than being over there.
What was the food like?
The food was good.
It was good?
Yeah. First 6 months, I ate a lot of sea rations. They come in little boxes. Now they have meals ready to eat, I guess, something totally different. But the sea rations were A, B, and C. The A's were the ones with the chocolate and the cookies and the good fruit in. So I would always try and get a pack. To the point I would appropriate some A packs from some of the armored personnel carriers occasionally.
Appropriate as in steel?
Well, we won't say steel because they were for the Army and I was part of the Army. So I took care of myself.
And so the A-Pack was your favorite food? Like, did they have any different type of meals, or it was just always that one thing?
Then they usually would give us one hot meal a day. When we were in the jungle, we during the day go out and come in at night into a camp, and they usually flew hot meals in and had a line, and you get one hot meal a day. And it was good because you were hungry. So we ate pretty good. I can't really complain.
When you went to go clear, like you say, what would you carry on you? The weapons, any other? Like,
a little bit of everything. I had a harness. On the back was one of those news straps. I usually kept a sock full of fruit. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, and my mother would send these little fruit cans over. And if I didn't get them in the A C rations, they, you know, every now and then, you know, once a week or so we'd get mail, and then I'd get a package with that in.
Okay.
So I kept myself, I had fruit on the back, and then on the other sock I had C4, the explosive C4. We used to carry a Claymore mine. It's something about this big, and it had C4 in it, little BBs, and you pointed it one way and it'd blow that way. We'd take those apart, take out the C4, and make a little ball about an inch in diameter, light it with a match, and we could heat our C rations. So I always usually had fruit and C4 hanging on my back. Then I had the army things with my clips for my rifle in. And then I carried in one of those things, I carried a camera. And I took some pictures, and I had the camera and that. And we always had to carry machine gun ammo. We used to carry it slung over our shoulder for the machine gunner. It's a lot for one man to carry. The machine gun itself was heavy, so everyone else would carry some of their belts of ammunition. And I had a couple grenades, and I had a gas mask. Oh, what else did I have? First aid pack. They had a little strip. If you get shot, it was that was your first aid pack to put on your wound. You weren't supposed to use that for anyone else.
Okay.
That they drilled that into us. And I don't know, that's probably about all.
What was the one weapon that the enemy had that you were the most afraid of being shot at by it, or?
Well, mortar or rocket.
Mortar.
If they would mortar us a lot,
Okay.
or shoot rockets. And the day before the day I went home, they had mortared us 21 times, and they had sent in 21 rockets, which seems a little unusual, but I had just turned 21 years old, so it stuck in my mind. They mortar us all the time and shoot rockets, but they didn't have a good target. I mean, they were just out there, and it'd send them in somewhere. Wherever they landed, they landed. You know, but that was the most fearful thing. We'd go through the jungles, and you could see those plungy stakes they talk about and that. I mean, they'd have their camps, and they'd put those plungy stakes out, and we'd come through the jungles, and we'd see the plungy stakes, so we know there's a camp up ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of dumb. It wasn't as like they show on TV. It wasn't that dramatic, you know. But.
And I'm guessing you have written "Tell me your favorite story," but that was the one. I guess
That was the one where we crashed.
Do you have any other favorites?
No, not that I can tell on camera. The one about the monkey, but I won't tell that on camera.
Did you have a buddy or a friend or someone you could always trust?
I had a friend, Richard Hart was his name. He was from Virginia. We went through basic training. We went through AIT. We both flew over on the same plane to Vietnam. We both were in the 1st Infantry Division. I ended up in a line company. He ended up in headquarters. And I would occasionally get back to the headquarters when I worked for the general. Then I'd see him in that. So we kind of went through the whole year, well, 2 years of being in the military together. I came back, I got married, and went to visit him in the honeymoon. So that was, I guess, the best friend I had.
Okay. Describe the terrain going through. Is it rough and
Jungle.
Jungle.
Jungle. They had rubber plantations over there where they had rubber trees planted.
Oh, okay.
And that was sort of neat. But the jungle, a lot of it, I remember we'd go on a sweep. There was a point man, and then there were two men, flank men on each side.
Yeah.
And when we go through the jungle, the point man had machetes. We'd cut our way through. Point man had the toughest time, so they'd switch off a while. But the two outside guys, which we took turns doing, they had to go through. And when we go through rubber, or not rubber, we go through, can't think of it. Bamboo. The bamboo grew wild, and the bamboo grew real close together. I actually crawled on the ground and slithered through the bamboo because it was that thick you couldn't walk through it.
Huh.
So that was the thickest time. The rest was just jungle.
Was it mountainous and
No. Where we were, it wasn't mountainous. It was all flat.
Okay.
That and rice paddies. We'd go through the rice paddies. A lot of times we go through the rice paddies, and you get out, and then you look, and there's a big leech hanging on you.
Oh.
So I remember the leeches, and they were big.
Yeah.
They'd suck onto you, and then we had insect repellent, and we used to keep a bottle on our steel pots,
Yeah.
and just take it. It was basically alcohol,
Yeah.
and spray that on the leech, and he'd drop off.
Okay.
But I had a lot of leeches when we were in the rice paddies.
Hmm.
So.
Is there any like clearing through and you see that one thing and you think, oh crap, I have to go through that again type? Was it the bamboo that you thought was the most annoying to get through?
No.
Nothing?
No, not really. You did it. Whatever was there, you did.
Okay. What were the? Never mind. What were like the sleeping conditions like?
We had what they call a Poncho Liner. It was like a very light, probably 6 foot by 6 foot blanket, but it was very light, not like a wool blanket. And we carried that too. And we would go to set up a camp, and that's what we used to sleep. We just slept on the ground. And sometimes we would make a tent out of it. It was warm enough over there. I mean, it didn't get cold at night or anything. It's almost the same temperature. Sometimes you wrap up in the thing. A lot of times you could just lay on the ground and sleep.
Okay.
When I first 6 months, when I went to work for the general the second 6 months, then we had a tent and we had a cot, and we would put metal posts at each corner and put a netting around the cot for the mosquitoes. We would go there maybe an hour before we're going to go to bed, and we'd spray the whole inside of the netting with mosquito repellent. And when you went in, you could quick get in underneath the netting, and the mosquitoes didn't get you. If you didn't do that, whatever skin was exposed, you would have mosquito bites the next morning.
And what about through like basic training? Is that the same? Did you just have cots? Were you indoors or?
Yeah, well, basic training, we slept in a building. It was a 2-story building, and we had cots. Every 6 foot or so there were cots with a locker. We kept our personal stuff in and that. That was basically it. I mean, we slept inside in a building on a cot during basic and AIT.
And like you said, you'd set up camp sometimes.
Yeah.
Was that regular, or were you mostly?
A lot of times, we were the group that would go out into the jungle. They would have artillery pieces where they would come, they would set up a camp, and the artillery might be there, or the mortar. A lot of times it was mortar. The mortar company would be there. So they had a camp already set up, usually. And morning we would go out, and then we'd get back in the evening, and we usually had a camp to come back to.
Okay.
But another interesting fact, we only wore fatigues. That's the outer pants and the outer shirt, no underwear. And I went for 30 days without taking a shower one time because we were out. But we didn't stink because we would get back into the camp, but we didn't have showers, but they would give us fresh fatigues. So we didn't really smell like you would think you would after 30 days of not, when you sweated every day, your fatigues were soaking wet, sweated. But that was an interesting time.
The guy that you were talking about earlier, your best buddy, do you still keep in touch with him, or?
I did for about 10 years, 10 years after we went back down. Okay. And my wife and his wife were in one room, and him and I were in another room, and he started talking about Vietnam, and his job in headquarters company was the dead people that came in. He had a deal with them and all that. And he started talking about this, and it was a little uncomfortable, what he was talking about, but, I was there, and his wife said that's the first time in 10 years he ever talked about it.
Oh, really?
And some people it affects different. Me, I don't talk about it. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So.
This is a more modern day question. What is your opinion on the football players not standing for the national anthem?
I think they should fire them all.
Fire them all.
They belong to the team. They're representing the team. So, being a representative of the team, I don't think they have a right to protest individually.
Yeah.
If they want to go out in the parking lot and protest, they can, but to do it on a team sport, I think is totally wrong. Agree 100% with Trump. The manager should make them stand, and if not, they should fire them.
What was your initial thought, if you can remember, of being stationed, the surroundings you had?
You mean during basic or Vietnam?
Do first basic.
Well, basic, they drove you there on a bus, they took you out, they shaved your hair, they put you in, and they basically broke you down to nothing. You were no good, nothing. And then they built you up to, when I came home, I was ready to go down to the ward in Lancaster and fight them obnoxious people. They break you down to nothing, and they really build you up in basic. And then in AIT, they don't demean you like they did in basic. But I think it's a good thing everyone should go through. I think it makes you a better person in life.
Yeah.
So.
I'd agree with that. Were you awarded with anything in the war? Or you know anyone who was awarded?
Well, what do you mean?
Any medals or?
I had, I don't know, half dozen or so. They have
basic
Vietnam service, Army commendation. I think, I don't know, Silver Star, Bronze Star. What is it? I got one of them.
I think it was
nothing special.
Nothing special. You know anyone who?
Not really. I know one guy got a Purple Heart. He was drunk. So he stayed laying in his cot when they were mortaring us, and he got a little scratch on his leg. He got a Purple Heart, and I remember diving into the bunker head first. when the mortars were coming in. It was sort of funny. He slept through the whole thing.
How do you stay in touch with your family?
Oh, we could write letters.
You can write letters.
Oh, yeah. You could, we didn't have to pay postage. They just, I wrote a lot of letters.
Did they have like any phones or?
No phones.
No phones.
Maybe like in Saigon or something you could have, but I never got there.
Okay.
Where I was, they had no phones. Another vivid memory, I had a girlfriend. She wrote to me every day the whole year I was there. She became my wife.
Yeah.
When I was there, they had big pockets on the side of your fatigues, and I would keep my papers and her letters in the pocket. One time I went to the shower when we were back in one of those camps that had a shower, and I took all my fatigues off, laid them down, went in, took my shower, came back out, and someone stole my papers and my letters from my girlfriend. I was so pissed off. I went back to the hooch, I got my rifle, and I went and I started looking in the trash cans, and I started checking different guys.
Yeah.
I was that mad. I had my rifle. I thought to myself, I'm going to shoot the son of a gun that stole my letters. I never found them, so I never shot him, but that's a vivid memory. I was just very upset about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I would have done, but I was very upset.
Yeah.
This is the patch you wore on your shoulder, 1st Infantry Division, Big Red 1. That's what the patches were.
Okay.
This is shrapnel from a rocket that I brought home and I put in plastic because the edges are real sharp.
Yeah.
This is other kind of shrapnel, bullets and shrapnel that I picked up along the way. This is the M14 round, and this is the M16 round. They were littler. You could carry more of those.
Yeah.
And these are dog tags. And when I came back, I had 6 months to finish out my 2 years, and I was a drill sergeant at Fort Dix. So I was a sergeant at Fort Dix. And here, I don't know what these are. These are different medals. And this is for rifle, expert for rifle. This is the one I'm the proudest of. That's a combat infantryman's badge.
Okay.
Not everyone gets one of those.
All right.
This is a helmet liner. It's plastic, and we would put the steel pots over top. I actually wore a steel pot.
Okay.
This is a real grenade. No explosives.
Okay.
This, can you get this? This is the patch we used to wear on our thing. The VC, the communists, would get the patches, and this is a real VC gas mask.
Oh wow.
This is what they would use for a gas mask. They would put it over themselves. And that's an actual, that came from Vietnam. That's an actual gas mask. And you could buy things over there in town, and I bought this jacket. It says, "When I die, I'll go to heaven, because I've spent my time in hell." In Phu Vinh, Vietnam, that's where we were. 1967, 68. I thought that was neat, so I bought it. It's been hanging in my closet ever since. I never wore it.
How about the shell below that then?
Oh, this bottom part's just a bushing I put on. That's an actual rocket tip to a VC rocket. They had one that landed close, and this was in the bottom of the hole. I dug it out and brought it home. Has some kind of writing on, but that's an actual rocket that exploded pretty close.
Huh.
So,
And
this is a scarf. The Black Lions, the first of the 28. This was our scarf. We would wear the scarf like this, and there are times we rode on the tanks and the armored personnel carriers, and they'd go on the dusty roads where you could use a scarf to keep the dust out of your face. But they used to, sometimes they'd fly us out in helicopters, sometimes they'd take us out on tanks. We used to sit up on top of the tanks because they were mines in the roads, and if they blow the bottom of the tank, the guy inside is going to be hurt, but the guy up on the top just kind of get blown off. We never rode inside the armored personnel carriers either. We would always sit on the top, same reason. Yeah. If they hit a mine, it'll blow the thing, but it'll blow us off and we'll still be alive. The guy inside, he's dead. You know, so that's why we never rode inside armored personnel carriers. But okay.
It's just certificates and there. Certificates. It's just
yeah,
regular.
They were for these medals. I don't know which is which. No. Army Bronze Star.
Okay.
That's about it.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, people say that now. They never used to. Okay.
All right, that's it.